guys, welcome back to Why You Suck, the series where I try and tell you some of the things that I wish I'd known when I was starting my business out, so maybe you can get a little jump start and not have to learn those lessons the hard way. Let's go.
Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas.
Peter's here. So if you guys don't know, this is Peter Zila, one of the OG educational welders on YouTube. You guys should be checking him out. There'll be a link down in the description. Today we're going to be telling you a little bit about how we got started in our businesses and most importantly, where we got our motivation from to get up and get shit done every day. So we both get questions from people who are just starting out, and that's a perfect thing to be doing. When you're getting started, you want to reach out to people who are where you're trying to get. And we're not being presumptuous saying that because you wouldn't be talking to us if we weren't.
or you want to do better than us, then you should watch somebody else.
So recently I was talking to a real close friend of mine about the fact that there's really two kinds of people out there in the world. People who have had an alright life and people who actually know what being hungry feels like. Zila and I have both been there. We've both made the decision between rent and food and the gas bill and the electricity. That's one of the things that, in my opinion, kind of sets you apart. If you know where rock bottom is, you know how to build your house on a solid foundation. If everything's always been handed to you, you have to absorb that or get it from somewhere. And I don't know that we can really help those people with their situations.
Probably not.
Tell me a little bit about what made you make something out of yourself?
Well, I had to. There was no other option. I did van life way before van life was a thing and it was popular. Not necessarily by choice, you know. 14 years ago I lived in my van and for like 3 months before I then moved into a motel, whoop-de-doo. And then while I was living in the van, you know, showering with a cold water garden hose outside up into late October, you know, it just toughens you up a little bit.
And you lived in Illinois at the time?
Yes.
Late October's pretty cold.
So, you know, you only have basically like one option. Either feel what rock bottom really looks like or grab the bull by the horns and try to hang on and ride. So, and I guess 14 years later, here I'm still hanging on and still riding, and you just see that you need to implement changes and you need to implement those fast. Life, in my opinion, is a mixture between luck, being at the right time at the right place,
and knowing when to grab a hold of that good luck.
You need to have luck. If you're totally unlucky, then nothing you can do. I mean, or not much you can do. So, but besides the luck, I mean, you need to have some sort of talent. If you just don't know anything, I mean, I guess there's always the option you can learn something. The day you stop learning is the day you're dead, really. That's my philosophy on life. And what it really takes, the biggest part between luck, talent, and then you need motivation. That is like your biggest part is motivation. If you can't get out of bed before noon, if work is just not for you, if dirt and sweat is just not for you,
maybe you need an office job.
Dude, I hate it so much. I wish I would have learned something decent, got a real job. It would be an air-conditioned office, I can tell you that. Yeah, maybe.
Peter hit on exactly what I was trying to get to with this video, and that's the motivation. Everybody's going to have their unique set of skills and talents that you're born with and develop, and then opportunities that are presented to you. And the most important thing is to grasp a hold of one of those opportunities and then run with it. For example, the space I'm in right now, I found this space because in college I installed security cameras, and I put the cameras in this building long before I ever owned a welder that cost 3 figures. The businesses at the front of this building have a certain need for a little bit of metalworking. It's not enough to keep somebody on staff, but it is enough that it is hard to justify sending it out. And so when I saw that and I was interested in metalworking and doing more and more of it in other ventures, the opportunity I saw there was for me to hone and improve my welding skills on somebody else's dime as opposed to just playing and practicing myself. And that was almost 7 years ago now, and I have expanded and grown and learned whole new skills like plasma cutting, started a sign making business, which I never thought I was going to get into. So without trying to be too self-centered, that's a perfect example of seeing an opportunity and then taking it. And
exactly,
that's motivation. You
also need patience. You have to be proactive about it, but you can't expect to build this business, to grow this all overnight.
Of course not.
Anything easy come, easy go. Anything that is built to last will take, anything worthwhile will take its time to build up, to get this to this point.
Peter's, we've been hanging out in the shop for a couple hours. It's actually 2 o'clock in the morning right now. And one thing we were talking about early on is Peter was living the van life. I moved out when I was 17. I lived the shitty trailer in the trailer park life with no hot water because I couldn't afford the gas bill. In the winter in Oklahoma, it gets cold here. One thing we both did that whole time was we lived below our means so that what was left over we could use to improve ourselves. I ate a lot of ramen. I got a job at a restaurant so that I could bring extra food home and not have that bill added to my life. I got a job working a night shift at a police department, dispatching and jailing, because that allowed me to nap on the clock. There were 2 people, you didn't need 2, so we'd take turns taking naps. I could work 10 to 12 hours a day while going to high school and taking college classes in the morning. And the whole point of that, I'm not trying to brag on myself because I've had plenty of failures. I didn't even graduate college. But every time I had an opportunity in front of me that I saw led to a path to advancement, I took it and I rode it for as long as it made sense.
And you really start with, I mean, I started in my teenage years working construction for like a couple bucks an hour, just trying to learn something, steal with your eyes, see how the professionals do it. In the beginning, you just don't get paid those big dollars, and then you try to do your own thing on the side. So there is certain things, and you said you didn't graduate college, so there's certain things that you absolutely need some sort of education for. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you need to have the degree to get this job. Making money does not necessarily require a degree. Even making a lot of money does not necessarily. Even with welding, there is stuff that you need a certification for. We absolutely have to have a certification. I mean, it all depends on what you do, where you want to go, what types of jobs you're after, where you want to position yourself in the market.
Zila is somebody you want to turn to if you want some really technical, in-depth knowledge. If I want to find out something very specific about a very specific process and how to do something, you're a resource for me. What I do here in my, and that's how you make your money. You know?
That's how I make, and also I live and lived and kind of grew up the last 12 years of my business in the scrapyards of this world. Some scrapyards require you to have some sort of certification for insurance purposes. Most of them don't. Really, the weld doesn't need to look like Instagram. It needs to hold up.
Yeah.
They need a guy who A, shows up when he says he was going to show up.
That is one of the biggest ones. Actually, this is the second time I'm shooting this video. I didn't like the first one because I was ranting too much. But one that I really laid into is just show up. If you show up on time, you're ahead of what, 75% of the pack? You guys have seen Tommy in a lot of my videos. Excellent resource, great helper. I'm happy to have him here. There have been probably a dozen people that wanted to be Tommy that didn't show up on time, and they're not Tommy because of it. This week alone, I've had people get in touch with me and ask if I had any side work because the holidays are coming up. Not a single one of them showed up when I told them to, and I had $50 an hour jobs I was giving out because I literally don't have enough time to do them right now. So just showing up is one of the best things. And on top of that, if you have a hard time showing up, wake up a little bit early. I found out that I do my best video editing early in the morning, and so I started getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it sucks.
You don't have to go to bed.
I know,
you can just edit a video after this.
It sucks. I've been doing it for a couple months, and it still sucks. But I edit for a couple hours, then I go work a real job for 10 or 12 hours, then I come home and sleep and repeat the process. If
Let me jump in on that one. whenever we go to scrap yards, whenever there's big jobs going on, and the guys say, "Oh, you know, boss, I worked so long today. I said, "How long did you work?" "Oh, we worked 11 and a half hours." I said, "You're a part-timer." "What do you mean part-timer?" I said, "You didn't even work half a day." Simple question. How many hours are in a day? "Well, 24. What is half of that?" "Well, 12. "Yeah, you didn't even work half a day. I consider you part-time. So what are you talking with me?" I mean, you need to make hay when the sun shines. When nobody calls you, when there is no work, then there is no work. I mean, you can sweep the shop as long as you want to.
And it's time to improve yourself and do the things that maybe are getting in the way of making money at other
practice,
times.
do something. Use that time to...
Wait a minute, speaking of practice, have you guys checked out WeldItYourselfKits.com? You can get yourself a globe just like this or any other kits. Learn how to weld.
Absolutely.
You had to let me do it, come on.
No, hey.
You were mentioning earlier that early on you did a bunch of BS construction jobs for cheap or free. I did exactly the same thing, and we didn't know each other back then. When I was in college, I figured that knowing how to do a bunch of stuff would be helpful to me. I don't have to be the best or even great at them, but having that knowledge would be good. So I basically took any labor job that I could find for a couple weeks. I tiled an entire high school bathroom, locker room complex just to learn how to tile. I never want to tile again, but if I ever have to, I can. I did flooring, laminate, and that vinyl crap that you stick down with glue. We did that for an entire Gordman's store, and that was a nightmare. But I sure as hell know how that stuff goes down, and you can repeat the process. I did plumbing, I did electrical, and I don't claim to be an expert. I'm not going to do those for other people, but I know how to do them for me. And when you have an emergency come up and you need to fix the pipes or something like that, you have that skill set behind you. And the best time to learn how to do that is when you're young and your time isn't worth as much as it will be in the future.
And when you have time to do that. If you think you're gonna rise to the challenge when the challenge presents itself, why don't you try to put your spare tire on your car on a sunny, nice weather day, instead of trying to say, I'm gonna rise to that challenge when it comes up, and you have like low 20s, snowstorm, you're half in the ditch, on gravel, on ice, and now you try to break the lug nuts loose and try to change that spare tire. It's very sad that in today's world there's so many people that can't even do a basic task like this. Everybody can do everything with a game controller or on a touch screen. Nobody can do the task in real life, and that's just where, that's just where it starts, where it all starts.
So the point we're both trying to make right now is that when you're young, when you're early on in your career and you're starting out, your time isn't worth as much as it could be in the future, and hopefully you don't have the responsibilities of the future, like a mortgage, a car payment, kids, somebody else that depends on your performance. You can go broke, eat crap, be cold, and get up the next day and try and improve yourself, and nobody else suffers for it. Like I said before, if you have found rock bottom, you know where to build a solid foundation for your house. If you haven't yet found it, I'm not saying seek it out, but it's good to know where it is.
Enough people have an opinion on America, if it's the greatest country or the worst country, whatever your political views are, however the deal works is, bottom line is, there are a ton of opportunities and there is chances for you to do better tomorrow, in a week, in a year from now than you're doing today if you want it bad enough. Most of the time, in 90% of the cases, the only thing that's holding you back is you and yourself, your motivation, not really your skills. You need to adapt and work around this. Maybe what you want to do is not what you're good at, so do what you're good at and see where life leads you. There's path is always crossed in life.
Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs says that he hates the idea of find your passion and then make that a job. His idea is find a job that you can be passionate about. and maybe that is making the job for yourself. That's what I did. I went to school for civil engineering. That's a great career path to follow down. I was more than 3/4 of the way through it before I kind of had a heart-to-heart with myself and said, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't sit at a desk and draw plans and think of things that somebody else is gonna build. And I just walked away from it. And it was a really hard decision, and it meant going back to being broke as hell for about 3 years while I got this business going. But now I make more than my friends who finished do. And that's not to brag, that's a direct,
and part of it is luck too. I mean,
I've had some opportunities
depending on how things work, you know, it's like if you have, there's a lot of this being at the right place at the right time, and sometimes you don't even know what that right place and that right time is till like years later in hindsight. Like people say, how did you get your business started? How did you get all these people? So I moved here from Germany like 14, 15 years ago.
And you got a video about that, right?
And I got a video about this, like kind of touching on it. And so for sure, I didn't go to school with anybody. My parents are still living in Germany. I was like the only one of my family moving here. And it's not like my dad knew somebody or my uncle knew somebody or I went to school with this guy, and I basically started with nothing. And I mean, most of it I still have today, but so what I did is I had to get creative. So after I worked for other people for about 2 or 3 years, I decided, well, let me see if I can do this by myself. And I decided that a welding and fabrication equipment repair business would be a good business for me to be in. That's stuff I like, that's stuff I know how to do. So when you started doing that though, you were making like $300,000 a year right out the door, right? Of course, yeah. I wouldn't touch nothing.
You hit the ground running like Roadrunner.
And after about a year, things turned around. The banks told me right up front, if you need anything before you be self-employed, do this now. Any credit card, any car, anything you need, get it now. For the next 24 months, there's nothing we can do for you, because fact is, 90%, over 90% of the small businesses fail within the first 24 months.
And Peter's right there that a lot of businesses fail. It's probably even, would you say 80%? More than that.
The banks have more than 90.
Yeah. And the reality is, you might fail, and that's okay as long as you use it as an opportunity to learn. Before I started doing sign making and plasma cutting and all this metalworking as my main thing, I went through a bunch of different options. I was installed security cameras, lucratively. I built and sold chicken coops, lucratively. I built and sold greenhouses and planter beds, lucratively. And none of those things were big enough that they let me jumpstart into something that I saw the potential to really grow with. And when I got into metalworking and saw how I could make a real business out of this, I decided to put those things aside and go for this, and that was 6 years ago. So
the way how I got into this, and the way how I got, I guess, lucky is being at the right time at the right place. 12 years ago, I was the first guy on Milwaukee Craigslist to offer mobile welding services. And the third guy in the Chicago area to offer mobile welding services, or welding services in general. So it starts out with something like this. The money isn't mobile, you don't need a big shop, you go to people, you do the stuff at their facility.
You really have to have your professionalism down though. Because you can screw up in your own shop, but if you screw up in front of a customer, it's going to follow you.
That too.
So I think what we're wrapping back around to is that motivation. You know, we've both got very different stories, other sides of the world we started, but they're the same story. Both of us took something we had some skill in and then developed a business around it. And we weren't born with those skills. We were born maybe with the tenacity to pursue them or something like that.
Yeah,
or
so
maybe we earned that being hungry. I don't know.
And the story I never really told on camera, I told plenty of people at my welding classes at my shop, which sometimes they turn into business classes, you know, tell me how to bid this job, tell me how to do this, tell me how to do that.
Shameless plug, if you're interested in some of that advice from me, you can check out Patreon like these fine folks have. Thank y'all. Peter, please continue.
And so when I started oxy-fuel welding when I was 13, MIG welding when I was 18, AC/DC TIG welding when I was 19, I started my own business when I was 30. I considered myself for sure a good welder. On a 1 to 10, for sure a 7. Well, looking back, probably it was more like a 3. But I thought I was a solid 7. So I'm kind of glad that at some point I put my own ignorance aside. Like I said, the only thing that's holding you back is you and yourself. And I spent a lot of time and money taking classes, working for people for free, doing jobs the longhand and slow way that I could have whipped out with wire, stick welding those purposely to train myself how to stick weld.
So you got an education on somebody else's dime that they weren't upset about you paying.
Yeah, I mean, so the hardest part for you guys is to decipher good advice from bad advice. I mean, even a guy who tells you something for free and not just for money, or even a guy who tells you something for money, is he BSing you or is he telling you the truth or his take on the truth or however? So that's the hardest part to figure this out.
And this is our take on the truth, and we're two dudes on the internet. If this doesn't jive with what you want to do with your life,
yeah, take it for face value. Yeah. And if you have a problem, comment.
No, for real though, if you don't like it, send me your address, we'll send you a full refund.
Yeah, right? You get all your money back you paid for watching this video, not a problem.
Definitely. So I think the takeaway from this, guys, is that between the experiences we both have, diverse but also similar, we've got a couple kind of baseline tips. Mine are going to be get yourself up a little bit earlier and or cut out something that's holding you back. If you're drinking too much, have one less beer. Maybe a pack a week less of cigarettes. Those small incremental improvements builds, and eventually you have this snowball going that you almost can't stop anymore. You have a name and a reputation in front of you that is bringing you work you didn't even ask for. You have people that are relying on you even though you don't really know why. And you're just gonna improve. The second or third one for me is seize any opportunity that comes to you that failing at will not hinder your progress. If failing will hurt somebody, will hurt you, will get you in trouble, you need to do what you need to do to mitigate that bad outcome. If failing means you don't make money, try it. You can only really get better at that point or land where you took off from with no change. Do whatever you have to do to kick your ass into gear. Don't be demotivated if you don't see an immediate reward. Things take time. You got anything that
you want me to do 3 things too?
You can do 3 things.
All right, so I don't even know if I have 3 things, but I mean, motivation for sure. We talked about this plenty. Try to become sharp. There's like 2 kinds of people. There's people that want to do better for themselves. That is the people that gonna be making it in life. They typically surround themselves with equally smart people or smarter people than themselves. If it's equally smart, then they're equally smart but in a different area of expertise, or they're just in general smarter than them, which makes you feel about that little and makes you feel really dumb. Hey, don't whack shit if I'm not prepared for it. Sorry. But you will eventually get over this and you will do really good hanging around those people. And remember this, God gave you 2 of these, 1 of those. You need to listen twice as much as you speak. And when you speak, you really need to use your mouth to ask questions, not to repeat what you already know.
At any point, if you're not comfortable with something, I am more impressed if you tell me, I don't know how to do this or I'm not comfortable doing this, than if you try and do it.
The other type of people are the people that, my favorite saying is, amongst the blind, the one-eyed is the king. So you, with your half knowledge, thinking you're a you're at least a 7 out of 10, when in reality you're a 3. You surround yourself with a bunch of 0s and 1s, and they all look up to you and cheer up and say, yes, you're so great, you know so much, you're so good, which will totally boost your ego but really get you nowhere in life. So it's your choice where you want to stand, where you want to be.
Peter, thanks for coming by. It's been good. I've been to your shop. Now you've been to mine. It's a great part. This is a great part of this community.
Absolutely.
The world gets so much smaller. So I jokingly say a lot of the time, I'm not really a welder so much as a fabricator. If you really want to learn something about welding, go check out Zila's channel. There's going to be a link, video there from when I visited his shop. I'm over here. Zila, give us an outro.
The only one who doesn't do anything wrong is the guy who doesn't do anything, period.
Perfect advice.